there, I'm Ben, I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. Today I've got my special friend Jim B. back again from Tulsa, and we'll be taking you through Foreward to the second edition. So, that's going to be on page Roman numeral XV. It says, figures given in this foreword describe the fellowship as it was in 1955. So it says, since the original foreword to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. Our earliest printing voiced the hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. Now, to my understanding, this is the only typo in the entire book, because it has already closed parentheses, continues, so I'm not exactly sure what that was about, but that's okay.
Correct.
That's where that is. And it says, the early text 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. So it says 16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered alcoholics. And so by my math, that means that there are over 25 people that have come out of every single one of those groups. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty sizable group. Mm-hmm. And it says groups are to be found in each of the United States and all of the provinces of Canada. AA has flourishing communities in the British Isles, the Scandinavian countries, South Africa, South America, Mexico, Alaska, Australia, and even Hawaii. All told, promising beginnings have been made in some 50 foreign countries and U.S. possessions. Some are just now taking shape in Asia. Many of our friends encourage us by saying that this is but a beginning, only an augury of a much larger future lies ahead. And so augury means an omen or a prophecy to predict. So they're saying that they predict that a much bigger future for AA lies ahead than that. Jim?
Thank you. My name is Jim, I'm an alcoholic. The spark that was in the flare into the first AA group was struck in Akron, Ohio. In June 1935, during a talk with a New York stockbroker and an Akron physician. 6 months earlier, the broker had been relieved of his drink obsession by a sudden spiritual experience following a meeting with an alcoholic friend who had been in contact with the Oxford groups of that day. He had also been greatly helped by the late William D. Silkworth, a New York specialist in alcoholism, who is now counted no less than a medical saint by AA members and whose story is in the early days of our society appears in the next pages. From this doctor, the broker had learned the grave nature of alcoholism. Though he did not accept all the tenets of the Oxford groups, he was convinced of the need for moral inventory, confession of personality defects, restitution of those harmed, helpfulness to others, and the necessity of belief and dependence upon God. Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help another alcoholic, but he had succeeded only in keeping sober himself. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry this message to another alcoholic. The alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician. Now I'm going to stop here for just a second and realize, now Bill Wilson, as we know, in Bill's story, his third time to go to treatment, he got sober on fear, he got sober on self-knowledge, but his friend Ebby had come to talk to him, and it's basically about spirituality. I mean, as we know, Ebby was also a member of what was called the Oxford movement, of the Oxford groups, and he went there to talk to Bill. Bill accepted part of it, but he went back to treatment, and he did have what he called a blinding light spiritual experience. Well, he was so excited about his new experience that he wanted to go tell everybody about it. And he was dragging people off bar stools and taking them to the Oxford groups. And they were no one was staying sober.
Yeah.
And so turns out that Dr. Silkworth Lois, Bill's wife, I mean, he was complaining to her that no one was staying sober. She said, but Bill, you are.
Yep.
You know? And so anyway, as a result of that, he went to Dr. Silkworth and was basically saying the same thing. Dr. Silkworth suggested, why don't you show people what I told you about the physical allergy to alcohol coupled with a mental obsession. And if they accept that, then talk to them about the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But first, let them see, okay? So now, Bill Wilson, like I said, he was a stockbroker, stock manipulator, and he had found a group of people to buy a company out of Akron, Ohio. Akron being the rubber capital of the world. This company was vulcanizing white wall tires. And so Bill had found a group to maybe take over this company. And he goes down there, and the business or the takeover does not work. And it's basically a union shop, and their attitude was not no, but hell no. No. And so here he was in Akron, Ohio, strange town, busted, disgusted, and knew that the only way he could stay sober was talk to another alcoholic.
Wow.
And then when we read here the next paragraph, how he learned about Dr. Bob and how how this all takes place about seeing, and meeting Dr. Bob. He went to the telephone booth there in the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel, and there was a church directory.
And that's all in a vision for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And turns out that Bill being raised in Vermont, the term tunk was a slang term of, I'm not sure what it meant, but it was a slang term, and he saw a Reverend Tunk, So he was calling all these ministers, trying to find somebody to work with. So he called Reverend Tunks. And Reverend Tunks said, no, I can't help you, but I know somebody who may be able to.
Yeah.
And it was Henrietta Seiberling, who turns out that was also a member of the Oxford groups. Well, the Oxford movement back in the day, it catered to the elite.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Akron, there was the Firestones, the Seiberlings. Henrietta was part of that. And the Firestones and the Seiberlings, they were all intermarried. They were all part of the same conglomerate. But anyway, she said, yeah, I know this doctor who comes to our group who confessed that he has a problem with alcohol. So we're going to read here in this next paragraph. It says the physician...
Hang on, just before we move on.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make note that, because I pointed out where they emphasize in the preface how to work with other alcoholics was of paramount importance. So this is the second time they talk about working with others, and then the third time they talk about working with others, and we're still not even out of the forewords yet. So,
correct. Exactly.
Yeah, yep. So
and we're going to read it again in this next paragraph.
Yep.
It says the physician, Dr. Bob, had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve this problem, or his alcoholic dilemma, but it failed. Now remember, he was a member of the Oxford movement. Okay. The Oxford groups, they would meet in people's houses. They would confess their faults one to another. They would pray for each other. And they had what they called, not sponsors, but they had what they called listeners, where they would call people, every morning, and they would, if they had something to confess, they had listeners.
Oh wow!
And then also they had it was emphasis on Bible study, and meditation, So Dr. Bob had tried this, and it was part of this, but he was still an alcoholic. And just like any church in America in 2022, they do not understand alcoholism.
Yeah.
So as a result, this says here that the physician had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but it failed. But when the broker gave Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and the hopelessness, Bill gave Dr. Bob the doctor's opinion, the physical allergy and the mental obsession. The physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy of his malady with a willingness that he had never been able to master. He sobered, never to drink again, up until the moment of his death in 1950.
And and just to pause real quick, right there, for the same reason that alcoholics will listen to another alcoholic, or let's say a record producer will listen to another record producer, I think that having a physician's opinion, helped him to open his ear a little bit more as a physician to hear this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, the thing about this, he was being taught the physical allergy and the mental obsession by a layman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
But it says here, though, this seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another alcoholic, could affect another as no non-alcoholic could.
Yep.
It also indicated, now here it is again,
Yep.
that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. Wow.
Yeah, and when I was being taken through this book by my sponsor, he said, what does strenuous look like to you? And then I don't remember what I said, but he said, and it says here, and you can see on the video, it says time, commitment, and sacrifice. It's going to be inconvenient, but it ain't about me anymore. And just to unpack a little bit on that, that's absolutely been my experience. I love summer. I love swimming, and I'm not swimming in the summer and stuff right now because this is absolutely far more important to my sobriety, to helping others, and to the world than me enjoying my day for a little bit. And so it's just one small example, one small sample size of how this program has changed my life.
Correct.
So that will be the end of this episode, and we'll pick it right back up on the next paragraph in the next one. Thank you guys, and God bless.